Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of the Dimas School of Film podcast. My name is Tim Oldfield. With me, as always, is my couple of compadres here. I've got Julian Slaney over to my right. How are you, Jules?
Good. Good to be here. Good to be back.
Excellent.
Second episode. Excited.
And in the phone booth over there, all the way from Darwin, we have via link up here, Al Oldfield. How are you, Broseph?
Good. I'm excited about episode number 2. Utah, get me 2.
And unfortunately today, young Bradley Gavin has come down with something, so he's somewhere in the circuits of time at the moment, so he can't join us today, unfortunately. But
we're all thinking of you, Brad.
We are all thinking of him. So anyway, thank you again for joining us for episode 2. As you can remember, episode 1 was about Point Break. Today, we will be discussing the 1987 classic Innerspace, which Al Oldfield did mention would be a good one to do this time. So, Al, do you want to just give us a bit of a rundown on the film and start us off?
Sure, Timmy. So, Innerspace, 1987. Joe Dante directed. Joe Dante's done some amazing work in the 80s. A lot of films that we all love. Gremlins, Small Soldiers, Gremlins 2.
Oh, yeah.
He did... What else did he do? The Burbs. Oh, Party Foul.
That's funny. I was just putting my phone on silent.
Sorry.
That's all right. Staying in there.
He did The Burbs. He did The Twilight. Oh, he did one episode of the 80s version of The Twilight Zone. Did a heap of good stuff, right? And one of them was Innerspace. So we had, who's in it? Dennis Quaid, Meg Ryan. In fact, Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan actually met on this film and subsequently got married later.
Oh, how romantic.
Isn't that nice?
Isn't it lovely?
Martin Short, super comedic actor. It's got a lot of good stuff going on. I was reading some stuff about it, and Joe Dante, it's a very similar theme to a film called The Fantastic Voyage, which a lot of you guys might know from a lot of rip-offs. If you've seen Journey to a Punk Planet, that episode of The Mighty Boosh.
Yes.
There's an episode of The Simpsons as well, spoofed on Fantastic Voyage, where they shrink a pod and it goes inside a man. And
they actually do
so
that in Futurama as well. In this episode of Futurama, they
exactly,
shrink him down, the ship down, and it flies around.
Yeah, so that's all based off Fantastic Voyage, which was a much, much earlier film. Joe Dante was very aware of that and didn't want to make a remake, so this was a lot more, I guess, reality-based in its appearance of the inside of the body and things, and it's a lot more of an action comedy romp, if you like.
A romp, yeah.
I like the way this movie starts with, like, the first title you see is Steven Spielberg Presents, right?
Yeah.
Now, 1987, Spielberg is, like, shitting gold, right? He's got, he's already got all Jaws and all that behind him, but he's just done, a couple of years ago now, but he's done E.T., he's done Close Encounters, he's a couple of Indiana Joneses in, anything this guy's touching is fantastic. And I've seen this movie a lot, but I saw that credit and I'm like, 80s Spielberg, this is going to be awesome. Yeah. And then I feel like you get introduced to our main character, Tuck Pendleton, straight away.
Can we talk about just before we get introduced to Tuck? Because I think that whole opening credit sequence through the ice cubes of the glass is really brilliantly done. And I was doing, in terms of researching this film, I was kind of I stumbled across a site. I don't know whether or not you guys know about it, but it's called The Art of the Title. Have you heard about that website before?
Oh yeah, that's a great site.
So it's www.artofthetile.com for anyone that wants to check it out. But one of the movies that they did look at was Innerspace, and there's a little blurb here I'd really like to read, and I think it just kind of encapsulates the brilliance of how it's done and all that sort of thing. Would you mind if I read that out?
Go for it.
So it starts off with contained almost entirely within the structure of a single ice cube. The title sequence for Joe Dante's underrated sci-fi comedy Innerspace takes viewers on a fantastic molecular voyage from the bottom of a scotch glass to the hands of a swaggering hotshot. Foreshadowing the film to come, a simple change in scale transforms the ordinary into the alien. Frozen water becomes a shimmering crystalline maze of glacial hydrogen and oxygen, while the chatter of a cocktail party is depleted to become little more than obtruse reverberations. An infinitesimal world reconstructed with every clink of tumbler. As Wayne Fitzgerald and David Oliver Field's material title, so they're the two guys that did the opening sequence, contrast against the coruscating background, the longest drink pour in movie concludes, introducing us to future micronaut Lieutenant Tuck Pendleton. I just reckon that's such a beautiful way of putting together.
Beautiful.
Isn't it?
Particularly for like this 80s comedy.
Yeah.
It is. But I mean, the good thing about it is it gives us a good picture of pretty much about most of the themes in the film. I mean, it gives us a picture of a kind of an alien unknown space. It gives us a picture of miniaturization in terms of being small, well, being in amongst something that isn't terribly big, but seeing something up close that, you know, the perspective that you wouldn't normally get. And it also gives us a look into Tuck Pendleton's horrible drinking problem, which is like the basis of his whole character and how we know him from the start, you know?
Yeah.
So
I loved how they introduced Tuck so quickly, and you got such a picture straight away. He's like super confident, but you can tell he's pretty bummed and pretty broken.
Oh yeah.
That he hasn't been able to, you know, do some of the great things that other blokes have, and you know, and that results in I guess, or manifests in his drinking problem.
Yes, because this is something I was gonna question. Is because like he seems like such a train wreck. Like this guy, like I mean, you see him, he's shit-faced drunk at this amazing thing, and I'm kind of like, you know, he's obviously talking about the planes that these other pilots get to fly, and he doesn't get to fly them. But, like, his whole life seems like a complete train wreck. And I'm like, is his whole life a complete train wreck because he didn't get to fly these planes? Is that, I mean, was his life going great? And then they're like, oh, sorry, we've chosen some other guys. And he just totally destroyed his life with booze and, you know, womanizing and whatever. Like, it was, I didn't really like the way he was introduced, to be honest. I thought it was just too abrupt. I was like, I liked its fast pace, but I'm, you know, this movie has such a little amount of backstory for anyone. And this goes for Martin Short's character as well. Like, this guy is suffering, what's his name? Is it Mark?
Jack.
Mark? Jack, that's the one, sorry. Jack is,
Mark.
I don't know where I got Mark
What movie
from.
did you watch?
So Jack is like this guy. He is suffering from some serious problems with zero backstory at all, you know? Like, it's kind of like, I get it might be the story of how he gained his confidence back or whatever, but, like, there's a lot of questions that can be raised with this film, and I don't know, I guess that's just the 80s films in
I
general.
don't know. I don't really think we need a whole lot with Jack though in terms of backstory. I mean, he's a checkout job. He's a checkout guy, so he doesn't have an amazing job, most likely because he can't really hold down anything more than that, given the fact that he's so neurotic and he's not really. The poor guy is just so panicky and just having a really hard time that I don't know. Like I don't really think that we need a whole lot in terms of his backstory. I think the idea is that you've got the two complete opposites in character in terms of
that's a good point.
You got this real kind of alpha male guy, really confident. Obviously, he has a drinking problem, but he's really confident and he's sure of himself. He's sure with women and all that sort of stuff. But then you got this other guy, so it's basically the polar opposite.
Yeah. No, and that's a really good point, actually. I like that. I guess I was a little too narrow-minded.
Now, tell me if I wasn't the only one that saw a little bit of Han Solo going on. In Tuck Pendleton.
Well, yeah.
He's like, he's got this like, swagger, and he's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
But you're still like, Tuck. He's
a lovable dick.
Oh,
yeah.
I struggle to love him, to be honest.
He's a scoundrel.
He's very much a scoundrel.
I found him very Han Solo.
Mm.
You
Yeah,
know,
fair
like just he had that swagger and that scoundrel about him that really worked.
And the other thing with that first thing is, like, it's really the only first time I've really noticed it. But he gets kicked out of the kitchen because he's trying to piss in there. Is that right? Like
Yeah, it
he
is.
goes into the kitchen to have a leak, and they kick him out.
And he screams on the way out. What, can't a guy just is trying to find the bathroom or something?
Yeah,
or
something
trying to
like
find
that.
the head, you know? Like,
That's right.
so I
Yeah.
guess he's very shit faced. Whether he's always that shit faced, but yeah.
I was amazed. I was amazed at the relationship between Lydia and Tuck. It seems really bad. Like, you know, like he's clearly a jerk and making a mess of himself. And Lydia's like, "Nah, I'm out. This is ridiculous." And he like clicks on a song. Straight
Oh,
to my love,
yeah.
and she goes all gooey straight away. I'm like, hang on a minute.
Yeah,
Well,
it
see,
kind of made me
maybe-
feel really uncomfortable with that.
But
like,
maybe this is a bit of a hint into the fact that he wasn't always an alcoholic, and maybe what you were saying before about something to do with, I don't know.
like
what-
he's had a moment in his life. that's
yeah,
just
like he
turned
was
it
going
around.
well, and maybe something didn't go his way, and he did turn to drinking,
Yeah,
and maybe their relationship kind of has started to go on downhill, and this was kind of the last straw
maybe.
type thing.
Mm.
It actually, that scene really bothered me, like, because she's like, I actually noted, like, that she's like, she gets him into the apartment and she says, no, 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 no. And then he puts on a song and that's it. She doesn't say anything else. And it's just like, come here, baby. And he gets on her
I'm
and he's like
back.
making out with her.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, I don't know whether it's a Disney film or not, but whatever, it's, you know, it does that light-hearted, you know, they're making out and then it fades to the morning, which obviously represents that they did the business, you know, but obviously she's leaving in such a hurry in the morning. She's not happy with her choice and, you know, maybe she got swindled a little bit, but yeah, no, it wasn't a very nice scene, so...
It does seem odd, but I guess it's like we were talking about. There's no sort of backstory. There's no in-depth character development. So there doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
All you need to know is that they're kind of not happy with it. You know, like it's not kind of working, and she leaves. I picked up the cab driver was the same. His name's Dick Miller. I found out just before. And he's in Gremlins. Turns out this is the third Joe Dante film that he's been in. It's like his muse or something. It's like his Johnny Depp
I was
to
going to say that.
Tim Burton. I just thought that was a nice little like cameo spot. And he keeps chiming in and like, you know, I don't know. I don't catch cabs very often, but the ones I do, the cab drivers aren't that chatty.
Yeah, no. Not at all.
Just gonna drive the car here.
So, do we want to move on in terms of? I mean, we could talk about in terms of. I mean, Jack, in regards to where he starts off and that sort of thing, and the kind of weird characters. Like, obviously, you know, he's got quite a really interesting relationship with his doctor.
Yeah.
And the other character in terms of his side of the story is what's her name? The other checkout girl. I can't remember her name. Anyway.
Wendy. In fact, another interesting tidbit I found out.
Ooh.
Wendy, I'm not going to look it up because I've got things to do.
Yeah.
But plays Francine, the mum on American Dad.
Really?
Really?
Really? Yeah.
Really?
We're going to call this segment Really?
Really? Oh, how about that? You know what's funny? Because I was listening to her. You have those moments in movies where you're like, I know that person from somewhere. And obviously, I didn't pick her face, but I probably recognized her voice. I was going to IMDb her, but like you said, you know, got things to do. So
Things to do.
Things to do.
I'm a busy
so-
guy.
Just before we move on, I just want to point out a note that I've made here about Tuck Pendleton. I was like, perhaps Tuck is sad that he can't explore outer space, so he gets to explore inner space instead.
That's deep, Jules. That's
And you
deep.
know what?
I like it.
Given the film, that's probably what they were thinking.
That's
when they
I
wrote
know
it.
because Like on those models that he knocks off the table, there's a couple of little lunar modules, or a couple of little outer space things. And I was like, it kind of came into my head, and I was like, oh, how about that? So
Well, I mean, it's almost like they were test pilots, right? So it's
Yeah.
almost like the guys who are at the dinner were getting presented with being able to test these new planes, which is probably the next step to becoming or applying to be an astronaut.
An
So,
astronaut. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that was definite. I think that's definitely the link, Jules. Sorry to connect some clear dots, but yeah, he couldn't get into outer space,
I just
so
wanted
he's
to,
going
you
into
know,
space.
He's going into space. I've done well
That's
on that
right.
one. So I mean, really quickly
Yeah.
with Tuck, like obviously, I think, I mean, what did he say? He flew the Tomcat. Yeah, he crashed the Tomcat onto the
The rolling flat top.
thank you, the rolling flat top. But in his apartment or house or whatever is he lives in, he's got a whole bunch of pictures of this. It's a supersonic jet called a Blackbird. It's a something Blackbird. It's like an SR-14 Blackbird, right? It's like the fastest flying object that humans have ever made. And I'm like, he's got all these photos on it. I kind of wonder, was he a test pilot for that as well? It's like, again, can't be answered, but they're right above his couch where his shitty little robot arm is. And I'm like, maybe he's got all these photos of this, this supersonic jet. Was he a test pilot for that? Did he crash that? No, maybe not. But that's all.
It's kind of nice. I mean, I guess that's the subtle backstory that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
that stuff happens in the background.
Yeah.
I have very mixed feelings about Martin Short
Yeah.
in general. Like I really love some of his work, and I don't get other parts of his work. But there's no denying he's an amazing physical presence in this film. He's a super physical actor, and everything he does has some, piece of physicality to it, basically, whether it's just him in a conversation and the way he looks around or moves his head or whatever, or whether he's a lot more slapstick about it. And I'm very I find that quite a talent. I think that's
I
really
was
good.
actually thought that Martin Short kind of carried this film mostly. I was like, even though, Dennis Quaid's kind of the main character of this film, I kind of thought that I felt Martin Short did a way better job than pretty much anyone else in this film. To be honest. Like, he really brings the energy.
Dennis Quaid spends the whole movie in the pod, like sitting in a chair, looking at a monitor.
That's a good point.
And he would have shot that all by himself. That's all video playback on the monitor. It had nothing to work. Whereas Martin Short, is a lot more out.
Yeah.
Feeding off other actors. I really like a movie that owns and sells the tech in it, right? Like, I was just sitting there watching, the whole opening sequence of the lab. And it's like, so I found out that the background is full of like actual scientists doing stuff to make it look more real, whatever they're doing. And it was just things like, why does it have to spin to shrink? And like, why is that like cover of the pod covered in gold? And it's like, but what's cool about it is like, these are things that I'm interested in. While I'm like, oh, I wonder why it's gold. I wonder why it needs to be gold. And it kind of just doesn't matter. Like it's an interesting point. You're just like, oh, they're shrinking stuff that must need to be gold. It's probably real. Like it really sells the tech. They've got Ozzy, this like uber nerd, and he's spouting just this jargon that it's irrelevant what he's saying. I don't know what he said.
That's what he's doing. They're filming on the camera, yeah?
Yeah, and he's just spouting jargon.
Yeah.
But it works because you're just like, oh yeah, this is really important and this is difficult, and I love it. I get, that's how I get really lost in the world of a movie.
Yeah.
It's just all that stuff going on where I'm like, oh, this all looks really important. It must be.
It's a build up, isn't it? It's like.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we're in an important space, and this is, you can tell that it's a process that's, not completely ironed out. Like, you don't know, you can tell that they don't know what's going to happen, whether it's going to work, all this sort of stuff.
That's one thing I really liked about it, actually, in that particular lab, the fact that everything looked really messy. Everything was like, It looked like everything had been laid out neat once, and then they're like, we need more monitors, so they just kind of plonked them, and there's cables everywhere, and
they carry a really that's a great point, Jules. I really like that aspect of it, that aesthetic. It's like, and it jars really nicely when you get into the bad guys further on, and everything that they do is really, really neat and clean and white. This lab looks like, they're not worried about, protocol or order. These guys are so like into the thing of what they're doing that it's just like messy, and they kind of can't afford, like, it feels like it's all coming off their own bat.
Yeah, and it's like
they're like paying for it, and they're doing super overtime, and like there's this nice little dialogue where Ozzy's, he's getting the chip in. He's with the guy who's controlling the robot arm.
Oh, the paperwork.
The paperwork,
And
the paperwork.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, and Ozzy's like, you're supposed to have had this to me like a week ago, man. What's going on?
Yeah.
He's like, have you got any more of this?
Yeah, exactly. I love that bit. I was going to bring that up. I love that
just
bit.
this like awesome
Good
bit of
little
disorganization.
bits of detail, it's little bits of detail that really give it that authentic feel, like, as opposed to like, the sterile, or we don't use paperwork, it's like, it just makes it feel way more realistic, so
Yeah.
I really like that. But it's going back to what you were saying with the, like, how everything was gold. I find it funny that when it comes to sci-fi movies, there's no shortage of gold tinfoil. Like, what is it with sci-fi movies? And they just have like that scrunched up and then flattened back out tinfoil just everywhere. Like, there's heaps of movies that have got it, but the one that even comes to mind really quickly is like in The Fifth Element, right? When they reconstruct Lilu. And then she runs away and jumps through the wall of gold tinfoil. So it's like, like, what is it about gold tinfoil that makes things look sci-fi? Like, is there? That's what I want to know. Why do they use the gold tinfoil in the sci-fi stuff? Is it gap fill for the set, or like?
So I want to keep moving.
Cool.
There are a few, like, I don't know, they felt like quite 80s things that I picked up. One was, so they've shrunk Tuck. The bad guys, right, as soon as they get out of the van in their orange jumpsuits, I couldn't tell you what it is, whether it was the music or, but you just knew they were bad guys.
The old electrical company trick.
Straight away, you're just like, ooh, this is going to go bad. Something's going to happen here. So I really like that. And then the whole chase I found like nice and dynamic. Having come off the back of Point Break, I found the car chase really, really weak.
Oh, did you? I don't know.
It didn't. Well, like, it was good. Don't get me wrong, it was fine, but it didn't. I don't know. It didn't feel as amazing as that car chase and subsequent foot chase from Point Break. Just because we'd watched them so close, I guess.
I think the thing that I really picked up, which seemed glaringly obvious at the time, was Mr. Igo. So this guy is just a Terminator ripoff, I reckon. Because the Terminator came out in 1984, so that would have been the height of popularity at the time of writing this film, and everything down to his haircut was Terminator-esque, and he was machine-like. He's got machine hands. He's got no remorse. He's just after his gold, chasing. It's literally like the Terminator.
Yeah.
So another piece of trivia I found: Vernon Wells, who you will know from Road Warrior. He was in Mad Max 2 as Wes, the guy with the mohawk and the motorbike. No, yeah. Oh, come on, guys.
No, not getting that one.
He was also Maddox, the bad guy in Commando.
Oh,
Chainmail,
jeez,
mesh vest. Yeah, it's amazing. Let off some steam. Amazing. So he's like, standard bad guy. And in my research, Vernon Wells modelled his performance of Mr. Igor after Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator.
Bang, there you go.
Nailed it. Nice one.
So there you go.
Good
well played.
score.
Again, we're talking about those details in the films, and when they go to the mall, there's this, like, it feels really 80s corny. There's a shot of a guy in a penguin suit that's quite scary.
It zooms up on them too.
Yeah. but it's guy in a penguin suit handing out balloons, and he's handing out balloons to a couple of nuns.
Oh my god,
So
I
it's like
noted this down. I was like,
so it's like the
is
penguin
that...
giving balloons to penguins. It
yeah.
was just like that this tacky '80s sort of in joke that I really liked.
It was pretty
Yeah,
creepy that mall because there were like costumed clowns and animals just everywhere.
Yeah.
There was
and
a lot of them.
when Ozzy dies, like
They're all
his
looking over him.
the last thing he sees is like these really scary, dodgy animal suits all over him. You would be freaking out.
Yeah.
You'd be like, I'm going to hell.
Yeah.
This is hell.
But
This is purgatory.
not
Like,
just that though. Like, what about the dude who's laughing and taking photos of it
Oh,
all?
and he's like, "Did you see that?"
He's like,
Just see that?
he's laughing his ass off. A guy just got shot in
Oh,
front of him,
man.
is dying, and he's having a
Yeah.
great time snapping snaps. He's just loving it.
What's interesting with that, because like with the so obviously the bad guy steals the camera. He gives him a kidney punch, steals the camera, and then they get the photos developed. Now, when you look at the photos in the lab, they're like super zoomed onto Martin Short's character, right? Like, but not just a
Yeah.
little bit. Like, it's got like his name tag and in it. So why was this guy taking photos of Martin Short? Was he like stalking
Well, it
Martin Short?
feels
Well,
like
the other thing is
creepy.
with Martin Short, being the neurotic character that Jack is, he was super cool with being stabbed with a
Stabbed,
needle and injected with some foreign fluid. Like, he didn't seem to react to it. Like, he kind of went, oh, like he
just rubs his ass a
He
little
kind
bit.
of
He's
felt
like,
a bit
"Whatever."
uncomfortable,
odd.
but he just kind of stood there and went, yeah, okay, yeah.
But
Like,
even
that
later
was-
on, when the scientist, when Martin Short goes back to the laboratories, and the scientists question him to go, "Oh, how did Tuck get inside you?" And Martin Short says, "I have no idea." It's like, dude, you got stabbed with a syringe in the fucking mall. Like, do you not remember that? Like, god
that-
damn it.
where do you live? I mean, I know it's the '80s, but
God,
geez.
man. Bad memory this guy
uh,
has.
yeah.
I found it a little bit confusing that about the nightmare that he had
Oh,
was
the old lady.
yeah, that it was exactly like when it happened, it was conveniently exactly the same as a dream that he'd conjured out of nothing.
Yeah, kind of like all of a sudden gives it like a spiritual kind of side to a very scientific film. Maybe not
Well, it was-
spiritual, but
It almost like he'd had a premonition.
Premonition,
I don't know.
yeah.
I couldn't believe how exact the dream was to what happened in reality. It turned out to be a cigarette lighter, but yeah. Anyway,
yeah, it was a bit of a weird moment, wasn't it? It's kind of like you could question why it was in the film. Like, I mean, obviously it was
Yeah.
it was showing off
Was-
the reason that Tuck was using his magnetic whatever it
Yeah.
was to make the prices go crazy, but yeah, it kind of like did it really have relevance?
did that
I mean,
need? But did that need the whole dream
yeah.
sequence to start? Yeah.
So, again,
Yeah,
mate,
that's
perhaps there is deleted scenes where it would possibly explain his backstory a little more. Again, like obviously we're talking about how I mentioned how little backstory there is. Perhaps there are deleted scenes. They said, look, this movie's too long with this crap in it. Just cut it out. The audience won't question it until 2015 when three guys sit in a room and question it.
That no one.
you know. So yeah, don't know. That was an interesting one.
Yeah, so then it goes on, and there's I don't know. I'd be honest. I reckon I would have made a sandwich around the middle. I was just like, maybe because I've seen it a lot or something. I don't know. I wasn't as interested as I was
Yeah.
watching Point Break or
Well,
other movies. I don't know. It was
Yeah.
it felt this time around, because I've seen this movie a lot, and this time around it felt more laboured and like I tell you, I lost it when Scrimshaw came in. Yeah, when the whole like cowboy and the bad guys sort of came in, I'm like, I don't know, I just wasn't that
Yeah.
interested again after the initial setup of Tuck having to get the eye and the ear and the dancing scene. I guess it was almost after that dancing scene
Yeah.
where they're drinking in his apartment.
Mm.
I just kind of like, oh yeah, kind of lost it a bit.
You're definitely right. I find it started to kind of go downhill a little bit with me when Meg Ryan kind of came back into it. I was like, maybe we didn't need the introduction of another character, because there are a lot of characters to kind of keep focus of here, because you've got the crazy redheaded woman. She comes into it, and then you got the millionaire scientist guy who's trying to steal these chips and everything, and like there's a lot of people to kind of keep track of in this film, and
Yeah, well, because if I got confused around the cowboy
yeah.
because they briefly explain who he is, but they don't really say if he's a good guy or a bad guy.
We need
And
some
like,
backstory.
Well,
which well,
he's basically he's like an arms dealer for technology, isn't he? He's
yeah,
like a
yeah. I just feel like it was out of place because the good guys were clearly the good guys and the bad guys were clearly the bad guys.
yeah
So I found the cowboy in this like weird middle ground
yeah.
that was a bit confusing. Um,
Which is weird, yeah.
I
Which I agree because he's kind of like this, like he's in his own little world kind of thing.
yeah.
So he's not really associated with anyone until the very end. It seems like at the end he's kind of established himself as a bad guy.
Yeah, but yeah,
But throughout
I
the
don't know,
rest of it, it's just like, well, he's just there. I don't know, like he's
yeah, it's weird. There was an awesome thing I picked up on with the first face changing scene,
oh jeez.
Yeah.
right? Which the first thing I like is there's another Han Solo moment, right? Where he's like flicking through the books. He's got his glasses on because now he's going to be a smart guy. And he's flipping through the books. He's like, it's complicated, but and Jack's like, well, what are you going to do? He's like,
Yeah.
it's complicated, but we're gonna. And he's like, trust me. And I'm like, Han Solo, you're like almost exactly the same.
And it was a bit like
same delivery.
yeah. I was like, oh, is it going to hurt? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah, just like that kind of a dick,
Yeah.
but you're on his side.
It
Like
is,
yeah,
yeah.
it's gonna hurt, but it's cool, man. I got it. Like,
See, that's the point of this film where it lost it this time for me was the face altering stuff.
yeah.
I was like, oh, I forgot about this, and this is really
So I
lame.
tell you what I dug though. So I was looking into this, and the scene where he first does it, right, and the guy who plays the cowboy, comes out of the bathroom. Okay,
Yep.
cast your minds, or if you decided to listen to this as a commentary, that's you're just getting more and more pissed off at because we're not following it along. But
We're really
That's
not.
all right.
he comes out of the bathroom and he's like, what's going on? And Lydia freaks out. She's like, who are you? What have you done with Jack? And he's like, it's me. Listen to my voice. Right. What happens is Jack moves across and sort of just out of the left of screen. Right. And then what happens is a body double comes into just the edge and starts like going, you see his arm going, Lydia, it's me. Listen to my voice. It's me.
Yeah.
Right. She climbs over the bed, right, looking at the double the whole time. So this is all one shot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And goes back in and peers around the door, and you see the cowboy in his jocks lying there, right?
Like, my God, how did they do that?
So that's all one shot. So the dude had to go out of shot and around the back of the bathroom,
Take his clothes off.
You're like stripped off like a whole
rip
heap of
his
stuff.
rip his tearaway suit off,
Yeah.
right? And then get in the bath. And then there's a panel. One of the walls was a sliding panel where a makeup person was sitting, and they whipped off the Jack Putter wig and put on the cowboy fro wig, put the gag back on, and touched him up and slid the door, all in that one shot. And that's the kind of stuff that
Yeah,
makes
that's
me
cool.
look gooey. That's like 80s making. I'm like, yeah, I
Well,
love
it's
it.
it's
Yeah,
like
no,
it's
it's
like
definitely good.
guys sitting around a room going, how can we make this work? I want to do it in one shot. How are we going to do it?
Exactly, yeah.
And the fact that they would have had to troubleshoot that, I think that's
Well, it's almost like a magician's act, I guess you could say it's really bringing the magic to the movie if you want to get
Well, and
cheesy.
that's a lot of what movie making was
Yeah.
before the digital age got decent.
God damn you, CGI.
One thing they were talking about with this film is that ILM did this film as well, and they'd been doing a lot of optical shots, which are basically it's what we call compositing now, where you take two different plates. You might shoot someone on a green screen and then drop in a set or a backdrop or something in the background. But that all takes, so back when, before digital, that was all optical, right? You had to print the negative and then do another pass and print that one and then physically print the film together. It was
like overlay
it's like,
them kind of thing.
yeah, it's this whole process that I'm only just beginning to grasp because it's not our technology anymore.
No.
And so by this stage, ILM were figuring that actually we need to go back and do a lot more stuff in camera to speed the process up because it's just taking too long to shoot 6 or 12 different elements
Yeah.
and then optically print them all together. So a lot of all the body stuff, there were a couple of composited in pods,
Yep.
but a lot of it was all done in camera. So what you're seeing is all right there. So it's all a set. Usually there was a lot done in water tanks in this, so a lot of it was done underwater, and a tiny pod or a puppeted pod. I found out they built 7 complete miniatures.
Awesome.
Of the pod of varying sizes, right from about 3 inches up to about 12 inches, just for varying different shots. Some were remote controlled, some were rod puppets, all this, and just so they could get all these shots in camera and they could shoot it, and then it was done, and it didn't have to go to another department. And it saved a lot of time and a lot of money, and so
good too.
Yeah, it looks really good. You look at some of the way they do some of these films, like with the these shooting it over and over again, then laying it over each other, and sometimes like big budget movies, and it just looks crap. Like it just looks so crap. Like whereas this, like the sets and everything that they've done in this movie, like was really awesome. Like just like the internals of the body, like when Tucker gets first injected into Jack's butt, it's like, and he's like, oh, what, fat cells? And you're like, oh, wow, I'm looking at fat cells right now. I'd have no idea they were fat cells, but I'm looking at fat cells, and that's what fat cells look like. They obviously put the effort in to make it look really good.
It's like when he almost gets drawn into the heart. Like, I reckon that scene looks amazing, just the pulsing and... It just looks chaotic, like where he is.
Yeah.
It's very cringe-worthy, that scene,
It is.
Like, oh my god, the hook in the artery? Oh my god. Like, surely
pretty
there's
full-on.
got to be a substantial amount of pain inflicted there, but...
But yeah, all that, I think that's great. Like, I had no idea how that kind of...
it's cool.
And it
was,
makes sense, given the time,
Yeah.
But,
and to harp on, I won't keep going on about it because what I can highly recommend people doing is checking out a magazine called Cinefex, and it dates right back to the early 80s of cinema effects. And there's also another podcast called The Optical, and that they talk about particular, they're sponsored by Cinefex, and they talk about particular films and in episodes and that sort of stuff. I'd highly recommend. They're fantastic if you want to get into that nerdy film,
which many of us do, of course.
Stuff. That's
we
why
like the background stuff.
I guess that's why we're all here, right?
Just leading on from obviously talking about the models and stuff, I just want to talk about like some of this stuff from a medical point of view. With the heart scene, for example, right, where obviously he doesn't want to go through the heart because it'll be bad for him. He shoots a hook into the side of the artery, and then to escape, he uses a laser, cuts a hole in the artery, and then escapes through the artery. And as far as I'm concerned, doesn't really patch up the hole or anything like that. He just continues on his journey, right?
Yeah,
like
a lot of internal bleeding going on.
Yeah, that's sure. There's now I'm sure it's a very small hole, like a very small hole. But surely that would get worse. Like I don't know. I mean, I don't know the medical side. Would it heal?
The pod was tiny.
It's way smaller than a grain of sand.
And he was like about the size of a blood cell, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or maybe even slightly bigger.
Yeah.
That's hard to say, but yeah, it's like
feel like it was maybe look doctors, nurses, medical professionals.
Anybody out there,
get in touch with us and set us on the righteous path.
Yes, if you have a small hole in your artery, will it heal? Because he does that for a few things, and not to mention the fact that he shoots a prong into the back of Jack's eye, attaches like a clamp thing to one of his inside his ear. I think it's
inside the inner ear. I think
inside the inner ear. he never removes those things. I mean, are they going to cause later problems? Like I couldn't help but watch the film and just think, wow, man, he's got problems now. He's had this dude laser beaming inside him and stuff, and and then like they have a battle at the end there with that Snap-on Tools guy, the bad guy.
But I mean, that's the thing with the face altering. I mean, what kind of long-term ramifications is that going to have? But I mean, I hate going back to it, but it kind of bugged me, that whole face thing, and because I can't see why it was done. Like, I see why it was done in the context of the film, like, because they wanted to become the cowboy, and Lydia had some gold tooth thing just lying around that she could put in, whatever, which I found a bit odd. But anyway, but if we in a different world, if no bad guys are come in to try and steal chips and all that sort of thing, what would they have been using that technology for in terms of a lab rabbit? Like, I don't understand why we need to alter face muscles and stuff. Like, because I would imagine this whole experiment would be, let's go inside a rabbit, let's see if it works, and let's get the hell out of there. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not... Like, for a first operation, we're not going to be talking about altering muscle. Like, he seemed to have a lot going on for... Like, okay, let's see if we can hear through the rabbit's ear, and let's see if we can see through the rabbit's eyes, and let's get you out of there. Do you know what I mean? Because you've only got a day's worth of oxygen or whatever.
Yeah.
It just seemed like that bit of the movie it just lost me. I was just like, oh, that's it. And it hadn't before, because I guess maybe I just didn't care about it. But when I'm actually sitting there watching it, going, all right, I'm critiquing this now, and that's actually pretty crap. That's I don't know. It just seems so far fetched that it's just like, okay, well, I can see how it works for the story, but I don't know. It just lost me, and that in terms of me not liking the cowboy character at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit odd.
Yeah. There's a few bits that confused me, and one blew my mind. I'm like, man, kids' 80s films. There's a bit where the bad guys, Scrimshaw is trying to get a hold of Margaret, the evil doctor with the red hair.
Yeah.
So she's not answering her phone or something.
She's
tied up, and she's hanging out with Igor, who I'm like, this is a PG kids film. And he clearly straps a dildo onto his metal hand. And he's like, hey, you want to hang out with me?
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, mm-hmm.
But there's a funny, oh, gee, I can't remember if it's before or after it, but when Jack is in the freezer in the back of the truck, right?
I was going to say that as well.
She's like, I know how to warm him up. And he's like, knock it off, Margaret, or whatever her name is. Like, what the hell? Like, is she just some, like, sexual deviant who just has to be getting her rocks off all the time in a PG movie?
That's crazy. She diagnoses him with mild hypothermia from listening to his heart, and then immediately hits on him.
Immediately hits on him.
Like, immediately.
Within seconds.
Oh, crazy.
But I love that. I love that pep talk that Tuck gives Jack before he runs out the back of the truck. Like, I think that is so good. And I that's one of the things I liked about this movie was it's almost like Tuck was like this kind of big brother character, like really mentoring Jack into confidence throughout the whole film. I really like that about it, because I thought it was a good growing story for Jack as a person.
Well, and it's nice because he's not the role model that you would want to be doing that. Like, it's not that orthodox, oh, look, we'll sort this out. Slap yourself in the face. Yeah. He's a train wreck himself, but he's taken on, like you said, this big brother mantle.
That whole
of like,
slap in the face thing, though, is really bad, because there's the scene where they're dancing in the apartment, right? And Jack is, he's intoxicated. He's pretty drunk, right? And the movie kind of promotes that if you slap yourself in the face 3 or 4 times relatively hard, you're sober enough to drive. You can get in the car.
80s.
Speaking of that, what going back to the old segment, what car is that? What car is Tuck's car?
Oh, it's a Mustang. Oh, jeez.
It's definitely a Mustang.
It's a fastback Mustang. Like, I'm gonna guess. I meant to look into it actually. I'm gonna say 65.
Okay.
65ish, but I'll have to confirm on that. But yeah, definitely Mustang.
Check out the Facebook.
Yeah, just get on Facebook. It'll be up there. I'll put up some photos. Yeah.
Let down. I I found it quite funny when they're in the basement, when Jack and Lydia get kidnapped and they're in the basement and Tuck starts feeding him lines. He's like, it was not my toe that was broken, but it was my heart,
Yeah.
right? And Lydia goes all gooey again,
Oh, yeah.
right? But no. But then, so it's clearly Tuck apologizing, even though he never says anything resembling an apology.
Yeah.
And then she goes all gooey, and then Jack goes, "I need some time. Can you shut everything off for a second? I'm gonna hit on your girl, even though
Yeah.
you know what I'm about to do, and she thinks I'm you, and it's just really weird."
It
It
is
is
He's like,
awkward as hell. That's
Menage
And
a
then-
trois.
it's so yeah. I was like, whoa, hang on, whoa, that's weird.
And
Um,
but it's not just that. It's the fact that Tuck says if he turns off his stuff, he might not be able to turn it all back on. So he is risking a hell of
He's
a
like,
lot for
Shut
Jack.
up, I want to
just-
get some.
Yeah, literally, it is. And in the end, he's like, yeah, you got a good point. Fair enough. I'll do it. I'll risk it.
So, so there are a couple. We'll start winding it up. But there was when they get him back to the lab, and they put in the second chip. They get the second chip, and it's covered in bloody shit from Jack's pocket. And then the Eat Me, Drink Me comes up, and I'm like, why are we doing this? What kind of scientific, application does Eat Me, Drink Me have? Like, I understand the reference to shrink or enlarge, but I don't know. It just felt really vague and convoluted, right?
Yeah.
And I'm all grumpy about it. Anyway, they type it in, and then nothing happens, right? There's this pause, and Jack goes, "Maybe it was Drink Me."
Yes.
It's floored me. Absolutely. I loved it. It was like almost my favorite part because I'm sitting there. They just got me super grumpy. Fucking Eat Me, Drink Me. What's the point of this?
Yeah.
Maybe it was Drink Me. Nice.
And it was straight after he said it. Boom.
It was straight away.
Yeah.
It was a whole roller coaster of emotion.
But it's
I went
weird,
on
isn't it?
right there.
Because it's gone from the very start where it's all super scientific to, all right, we're going to enlarge him. Let's do it via a riddle.
Let's have a guess.
Yeah, we'll have a guess. Yeah.
Well, I hope you've caught up on your Alice in Wonderland stats. 'Cause
Yeah.
here we go.
Well, the last thing I couldn't really work out was at the wedding. Jack was there, great.
Yep.
All the vectorscope, military guys were there, good.
Yep.
But then Jack's doctor was there, and Jack's supermarket
This
boss
is-
was there.
But these are the people in his life. You gotta remember.
Yeah, but it wasn't his wedding.
Oh yeah, it wasn't his
Yeah,
wedding,
that's-
was it?
Exactly
It was
right.
It was
It
Tuck
wasn't
and
his
Lydia's
wedding.
wedding. Like, why are these people
It's
there?
like, Jack, you can bring one guest. It's like, well, I brought everybody.
Yeah, well, I brought my doctor and my ex-boss and the weird lady that I work with. Like, it was just
Yeah.
seemed random. Yeah. So, should we do a rating? Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add?
Just really quickly, just before we get into the ratings, I'll give this movie a bit of a plus. It's got a couple of really cool like stunt scenes. Good old 80s movies. You get some good stunts. I was watching very closely the scene where the the scientist is getting chased on the bike, and he's like swerving in and out of cars on the bicycle. I thought that was really wicked little bit of stunt work there. And the other one was the truck when. Obviously, it's not Martin Short
Yeah.
swinging around on a door.
On
but-
top of the
And then on
window
top of the
screen.
car, like,
Yeah.
oh, that was awesome. Like, I thought that was a really good bit of stunt work. I thought they just should be pointed out.
I'll tell you what, one thing in terms of that first chase that I've always liked since I was a kid, and I don't really know why, is the camera angle just behind the front tire of the car.
Ah, yeah.
Because it really demonstrates speed. Like you just feel it just feels faster.
Feels fast.
Yeah, like I don't know. I just really enjoyed that camera angle, and ever since I've watching that scene, I've always really enjoyed those shots in terms of how that was done. So maybe we should probably start winding it up, as you said. Do you want to, Al? Given though you chose this, do you want to start us off with a rating for?
Yep. So I'll just remind our 3 listeners.
Mate, if
Maybe.
you're lucky.
Thanks for listening, Mum. So we rate our films by the San Dimas scale, where we relate everything to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure on a percentage level. So Bill and Ted's gets 100% on the San Dimas scale. Doesn't mean it couldn't be more than 100%. A particularly good movie could rate 132% perhaps. And of course, if it doesn't match up to the bodaciousness that Bill and Ted's is, it can get a lower percentage. So I'm going to kick things off with a San Dimas scale rating of 62%. Just that cowboy stuff in the middle and the whole nightclub stuff really dragged for me. I love the effects. I think most of my rating came from the effects. And that's where I sit. 62% for me.
Yeah, nice one. Okay, for me, look, I'm going to go a little bit lower. I'm actually just going to give it a flat 50. It was half as good as Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure for the simple fact that I didn't think much of the storyline. Like, it had some cool concepts, but like Elle said, it was definitely the special effects that got it for me. And like, half the movie was special effects, half the movie is a storyline. So I was like, yeah. I am going to give this movie a sandwich rating. There was definitely quite a number of scenes where I could have gone up and made a sandwich instead of watching the film. Just a reminder for people, the sandwich rating, if you think that half the movie was worth watching and half the movie wasn't worth watching, you'd give it 5 out of 10 sandwiches. So I'm going to give it I'm going to give it 4 out of 10 sandwiches. You know what? Because, like I said, half the storyline didn't really do it for me. It did maybe a little bit, which is why I'm only giving it 4 and not 5 sandwiches. So I'm going to give it, not quite half the movie I would have been eating sandwiches. So 4 out of 10 sandwiches for me. So, yeah. Okay. Timmy?
And in terms of the San Dimas scale, I'm probably in between the 60 and 70 mark somewhere. Maybe I'll just call it a flat even 65. I'm kind of in the same frame of mind in terms of where the film lacked, and it really came down to that middle section in terms of all the cowboy stuff, and a lot of it seemed to drag. And as I mentioned before, a lot of the face altering stuff, and it kind of lost me a bit towards the middle there. So, I think but in terms of why it got higher than 50 for me was that I'm a bit of a sucker for the whole exploration thing in terms of it was a new idea. I thought the effects were done really well, and they still hold up, I reckon, for now. And I really like Tuck's character. I reckon he had a real spice to him. He was a very flawed character, sure, but I think he brought something really good to the film, and he was just a cool dude under pressure, which was really nicely contrasted against Jack's character, and I thought that worked really well. So, nice. I reckon about probably 65. And look, I would have made some sandwiches throughout the middle as well. I mean, there's times when I could have got up and baked a whole cake, I reckon, at one stage. So, but look, in saying that, I still think it's a very entertaining film, and it's still a film that I really enjoy and could easily sit down and watch, particularly if I'm not feeling too well on the couch. It's one of those kind of films that you can just kind of put on and not really think about and just enjoy. So
nice one.
Yeah.
Nice. So before Brad got lost in the circuits of time, he must have remembered to leave a note, and he got up and made 2 sandwiches during this film.
Yep.
And he gives it 55% on the San Dimas scale, and we shall never know why.
Well, he did say, I do remember him saying that he wasn't a big Martin Short fan. I think that played a big role.
True.
So maybe
we may have.
He might have been a bit confronted with.
We may have forced this film on Brad.
We may have. But, hey, that's the whole point,
That's it.
We don't all choose the film, so.
That's right.
That's it.
Speaking of which,
before we choose the next film, I'd just like to introduce a new segment to the San Dimas School of Film. It could have a theme song if somebody comes up with one. I've decided to call it "Podcasting a Wider Net," and in this segment, basically what happens is I get onto the iTunes feed and I search for the movie that we're reviewing, and I see how many other podcasts have done the same film. So I found 2 this week on Innerspace. The first podcast, I haven't listened to them all. I'll explain my reasoning, but the first podcast is called De Gnavne Filmenorden. And they reviewed Innerspace. However, this podcast was not in English.
Oh.
So I struggled with which particular Scandinavian language I had to learn to understand it, and time got away from me. And
These things happen.
that's right. So check that one out if you're of Scandinavian persuasion. My apologies for not knowing which particular language it was. But check it out. I'm sure they've done a great job. Now, the other one I'm a particular fan of, it's called Hydrate Level 4. And it's a father and his 14-year-old son reviewing films.
Wow. That's a good mix right there.
Yeah. And they Hydrate Level 4, this is called. And they decided that the listeners should start learning more about who they were. And the kid had just done a parkour class, and he really enjoyed it. They explained what parkour was, and I didn't really get to the part about Innerspace. But hey, those are your other options. So if you're not digging what we're throwing down, that's okay. We're giving you plenty of other options to cast your net a little further.
Podcast.
Very nice.
Net.
So there you go. And it's always good to share the podcast love, I think. So
that's it.
That's right. So that concludes the podcasting your net, a wider net for this.
The man in charge of choosing the podcast or the movie for next week was going to be Brad, but considering he is somewhere in the circuits of time tonight and we don't know when he'll be back, that responsibility falls on you, Julian. So
Sweet.
Would you like to unveil your choice for the next episode?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, the movie that I've chosen...
Just before you do...
Ah.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, I know.
No. So I chose my film because it's another Keanu film. Yeah. And to me, now this is one to ponder for the next few days or until you get to watch the film. To me, this film could technically be the unofficial sequel to Point Break. The movie we're watching is Speed.
What?
Yeah. This movie, you can relate to Point Break.
Oh, you know what? You don't tell us why. I want to hear it.
We're going to have to tune in for the next podcast.
Dear God.
And so the next movie we're watching is Speed. Yes.
Well, that's all right. All right. Well, that sounds good. So there you go, everyone. Episode 3 will be on Speed with Dennis Hopper and Keanu Reeves and what's his name?
Jeff Daniels.
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah. So
many others.
Great cast of characters. And also, probably could be worth, prior to that episode, it could be worth people checking out what the podcast was called. I Was There Too, I believe. And
I Was There.
And there was
That's a great...
Yeah, so it's a podcast basically where they interview people from movies that weren't major characters. So... and I do believe there was an episode where they interviewed people from the bus, like other passengers of the bus. So
he interviewed about maybe 4 to 6 of the bus passengers, and about their character and how they got their role, and
so check that out as well.
Nice one.
So it could be worth checking it out before we get this underway.
Definitely
next time. So
okay, so if you liked what we did this week, or in fact you did not like what we did, please feel free to tell us with reckless abandon at our brand new email, sandimasfilm, that's SANDIMASFILM @gmail.com, and we'll make Tim check that and sob through all the trolling.
Oh, so much trolling.
So much from our 3 listeners.
Thanks, Bob. Really inappropriate.
But yeah, look, send us an email, post on our Facebook, whatever the case, and we'll endeavour to get back to you, whether it's constructive. That's it. So everyone, if you haven't seen it yet, go out and watch Innerspace, and we'll see you next episode, hopefully sooner rather than later, when we discuss Speed. Take care.
Awesome. Take it easy, guys.
Smell you later.